I'm Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Angela.
We are the Ink Mages. Join us as we discuss all things fantasy, world building, storycraft, myths and legends, and of course, our own imaginative stories. Hello and welcome to the Ink Mages podcast. We are so glad that you have joined us today because we are going to be having one of our nerdy author interviews. And we have author Leah Ann Brown, who's going to be joining us in the studio today. We're super excited she's going to be here because she's a dear friend of ours. She's also the leader of our writer group. Yay! So she heads up the local writer group that she and I are a part of. So I'm going to share a little bit about Leah, and then she is going to be joining us on the show. She grew up in beautiful Southern Oregon, like me, where her love for nature and fantasy first sparked. One of her passions is to see the next generation walk in the fullness and greatness of who they were created to be. When she's not enthralled with writing, she's homeschooling her two boys, inspiring others to be creative, hiking, gardening, reading fantasy, drawing, painting, or watching sci-fi and fantasy movies. Yeah, that's awesome. She's got a lot of stuff she does. So we're going to probably touch on some of that stuff. So Angela, invite her onto the studio.
Hey, Leah. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to talk with you girls, especially because I know you personally too.
We've all been on this author journey together, and it's been a blast watching all of our books come alive and get published and become these beautiful, beautiful things that we get to share with the world. And we've gotten to do this together. Yeah. So Leah, you know us at the Ink Mages. We like to talk all things nerdy, fantasy, superhero, video game, you name it. We love our nerdy fantasy geeks that like to join and listen to our podcast. So we want to ask you, what is one fantasy nerd fact or a few fantasy nerd facts that you can share with us?
Well, there are a few, but I'll stick to just a couple. I love Lord of the Rings, so that is one of my favorite books and movies, and I watch it every year. So usually around Thanksgiving, Christmas time, we break out the extended version. So it's like 12 hours. And we all watch it as a family. So I love doing that. Love Lord of the Rings. So love epic fantasy. As you can tell, my book is epic fantasy. And then I also love dragons. So I just started drawing dragons, which I have a little picture back here of my dragon I drew. And so, yeah. Can you see it? I'll lift it up.
I can.
It's very, just a little bit. There it is.
So, so those are probably my two nerd facts. Like, I love dragons and epic fantasies.
Do you happen to have a favorite dragon?
Ooh, a favorite dragon. I've seen a lot of dragon movies. I love the dragon in Merlin, the Netflix show.
Oh yeah, the BBC Merlin series. Yes, one of my faves.
One of my
There's a nerd fact.
Is that the one voiced by
nice dragon?
Hurt?
What was that?
Yeah, is that the dragon that's voiced? Yeah. Okay. Yes. John Hurt, William Hurt. It's one of them.
No, you might be right. It could be John Hurt.
Yeah. Okay. Well, just quick favorite dragons. My favorite dragon is Toothless.
Toothless from How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Mine would definitely have to be Smaug, believe it or not.
Smaug.
Even though he's kind of evil, there's something rich and meaty about him that just, even as a villain, like even when he dies, it's like such a yes, they got him, and he just brings such a ominous feel on the screen. And I like him. I like him. He's big, powerful, and scary. And even though I like my good dragons, I got a good dragon in my story. I like the big scary ones too.
Yeah, I like the big scary ones too. I found out, here's a nerd fact, that in Lord of the Rings Tolkien, that is the smallest dragon.
Oh.
So there are actually bigger dragons than Smaug. I was like, what?
I didn't know
That's
that.
huge.
I learned something today. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
nerd fact.
Yay!
Something Angela didn't know about a dragon.
I didn't know that. And I know a lot because I used to be, I mean, here's a nerdy fact. I used to be a part of a website called The One Ring. And it was all of these experts would get on and talk about all of the Lord of the Rings histories and all of the things like where the Balrogs came from and all of the, like, only if you dived really deep down the rabbit hole, you would know the answers to all of these questions. And
Yeah.
I was one of the ones that would answer questions for people.
Nice.
That was a while ago. I mean, we're rewinding, 15, 20 years. But
Oh my gosh.
so I used to know a lot more than I do now. Like as time has gone by, I've forgotten some of the information, but I didn't know that particular fact. I feel like I should have, and I did not.
Yeah. Oh.
Well, Leah, tell us a little bit about your writing journey. And, you can tell us about what inspired the book, The Chronicles of the Hidden Realm, but kind of just how did it really all start and come together for you?
So it was definitely a long process because writing didn't come natural. So it wasn't until like high school that I actually liked creative writing, but then I still didn't see myself as a writer. But I was always a storyteller. So like my mom saw the storyteller in me at the age of like 7. So I was in first grade. I drew my first picture book and it was called Mr. and Mrs. Toad. And I brought it home and showed her all the pictures and told her the story of Mr. and Mrs. Toad. And she said, she's all, one day, maybe you'll write a book. And that stuck with me all these years. And so you don't realize like how these things actually start to impact you, even as like a little kid. Like I remember that. And so my writing journey didn't start until like 2015. And I was a stay-at-home mom and I had time on my hands. And so I was like, you know what? I could write a story like this, because I loved C.S. Lewis. He was a huge inspiration. And so I was like, I want to write a book with allegories. I want to write just an inspirational book for kids. And so it started there. Life happened, life got busy. So I'd write a chapter here and there over the years, but I really didn't see myself as an author, like as a writer. I'm like, I'm doing this. It's more of just a hobby. And then it wasn't until 2020 and we started to get together as a writers group that I really picked it back up. And I was like, you know what? I really want to finish this. I only had like 5 chapters of the book. And I just dove into it and was like, okay, I'm going to get this finished. And Bray Wyckoff, he was an inspiration because he's like, don't look at it as a hobby. Look at it as like a mandate, something that you need to accomplish because it's in you to create. So that was like a huge inspiration too, of just making the time, getting my story out there and finishing it. So I finished it and then I went through the editing process and the rewrite process, and that took time. You don't realize how long these editings take, and then the rewrites too. So I was like rewrite, paused editing. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna rewrite, then send it back to the editor. So it's a long process, but it's worth the work because you're taking your lump of coal and turning it into a diamond for people to love. So yeah. So that was my start.
I was gonna say, did you have a moment like during that season where you just felt like this was a calling for you, that you had to finish this book and write it?
Yeah, I would say it was 2019. I was starting to get inspired to write again. And then 2020, it was just like, I'm going to get it out and I'm going to finish it. So there was this like, I guess you could say calling or mandate in me that was just like starting to get passionate about writing and getting our stories out there that actually mean something. So for me, there's a lot of themes of like overcoming fear, light conquering darkness, good fighting evil. And so people really stepping into their destiny. And so that's what the themes of my book are, because I want kids to know they can overcome things, because I have overcome things in my life. So it's like, I want them to know that they're powerful, that you can overcome fear and really walk in who they were created to be. So that was, it's like, I need to get this out there. I need to get my message out there.
I will always remember I had just started writing my book, and Leah and I had a friend date, and we went to Bella Fiore, and we were eating cheese and drinking wine, and we were talking about the subject of books came up, and she told me, I think for the first time, that she had this book in her to write. And I was like, so excited and lit up, and I couldn't wait to see her start writing. And lo and behold, she did. Chronicles of the Hidden Realm. How did that story come to you? How did that originate?
So I love Chronicles of Narnia. So that was a huge inspiration. Nature is always a huge inspiration. So the idea of going to another world and, that light conquering darkness. So I wanted one of my characters to represent just pure light. So it's an allegory of God in my book, although if you read it you might not know that. But every book has its power source. So whether it's Star Wars, you have the Force. so
Yes.
mine is called the Eliora. And so I wanted a character to represent that beautiful power, love, and light. And so I'm like, okay, I want one of my characters to be called the Eliora. And it actually means God is light. And so
It's beautiful.
I got that. I started like creating my characters, where the first part of like, okay, like what, I want a brother and sister, a boy and a girl, and then a friend to come along, and for them to travel to a different realm, and for them to step into their destiny. And so I started character building, but I also had a little bit kind of like a blurb, a synopsis of, as I was thinking about what I wanted to create, to write. I started coming up with like a little synopsis of like, okay, I want a brother and sister. I want them to not know they're actually called to greatness at first, because they're being hidden. So there's this part where their world just gets flipped upside down, and they realize, oh, like, we're royalty, we're called to greatness. And so creating characters that all of a sudden, like there's a destiny, there's a purpose. And so I created them and just started world building. I'm a pantser, so I just create as I go. I create as I go. So it kind of evolves. So I have kind of like the beginning, like these are my characters. They're going to travel to a realm that's cursed and taken over, and they're going to take it back. And so that is actually their realm, and it's cursed. So they go on this journey, and, you create the villain, Gog. So that you always have to have the antagonist. And yeah, and so it just evolved, and my characters evolved. And as you write, just inspiration keeps coming from just everywhere.
I particularly love all of the fun creatures in your book. I just, as I was reading it, there was no end to all of these creative creatures, and some that I had never even heard of before. Just, being someone who loves mythology, and a lot of creatures, things like in Harry Potter, they're all inspired from creatures that you've heard of before, whether it's a mermaid or a hippogriff or something like that. And you have some characters that I'm like, where did some of the inspiration for these creatures and different monsters, and just where did they all come from?
Yeah. So I mean, they were some of them just created in my head. So, but inspiration from like Lord of the Rings and you C.S. Lewis and these things and Star Wars. One of my characters, Grundle, was a speedster, and I
love
love
Grundle.
I know,
Ewoks.
he's so cute.
I know, he's one of my favorites. He's so cute. But if you've ever seen Star Wars, that movie Ewoks, there's actually a little speedster character in there. And so he was kind of, he doesn't look exactly like him, but I wanted this little speedster. That little guy couldn't talk, but I wanted mine to be able to, when you're writing a book, you can't have a character that can't talk. But I wanted him to be different, almost like childlike. So he says, me going over here, he uses me a lot. And that's him like referring to himself. So he was a fun character to create. And then I have, let's see, Nobby, who's this little guy that can teleport and can be invisible. And he was an inspiration from just like gnomes. Like I love gnomes.
Okay.
And so just a little guy that is cute, and he's a little bit feisty and courageous. And so he was fun. And then there were characters too, like there was the tribe of Petra that just like I just imagined, because I was, in the story, I come to a point where I'm like, okay, they're going to be stuck. How are they going to get away? And then I'm like, oh, what if there's this, people that help them? And then you start to create like, what would they be like? And so in that one, they're gray, they're rock people. So Petra means rock. And so
that's right.
They can manipulate rock to where they touch it and it becomes like clay or sand. And so that was like just one of those things where you just imagine, and it's like, oh, I'm going to just create this because they need a way out. And your imagination just starts to go. So
that's true. You have such great characters, and they are all super imaginative. Like I love Grundle, and speaking of Grundle, like we have him in an illustration. So there's like a dozen maybe or half a dozen illustrations in the book. Can you talk about the process of hiring an illustrator and who you went through, and like the whole process of choosing what scenes you were gonna highlight?
Yeah. So that was such a fun process because I got to see my characters come to life. And Angela, I was thankful she referred her to me, and it's Cindy. I'm going to mess up her last name, so I'm going to look it up and make sure I pronounce it correctly. Fatkoja. So Cindy Fatkoja is from Albania, and she drew all my illustrations. She's on Instagram.
She's amazing.
And she did an amazing job. She was just so willing to work with me as an author to create these characters. So I sent her lots of pictures of what I thought the characters looked like, and she put her own spin on it. And I'd be like, oh, can you change this? And she's like, yes, don't worry, I want it to be exactly how you want it. And so that was fun, like being able to see my characters come to life and see her process of just like sketching, and layer by layer she would do each picture. So it was a lot of fun. And then like picking the scenes, I picked scenes that I felt like would mean something, and then also that would show the characters. So like the scene with Grundle where she meets Grundle for the first time, or Gazer, who is another like fun character. He's the shapeshifter. And
Gazer's awesome.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's
I feel like I could write a whole nother book about like Gazer. Maybe someday. But so he's a fun character, and I didn't want to give too much away. So in the picture, you only see like the tip of his wing. And so it was fun to be able to help, like, oh, this is what I want. you know, this is where I want them placed. This is the scene. This is what I think they look like. And just picking scenes that meant things and introduced the characters too.
And Cindy also had a hand in creating your cover. So she did the
Yes.
cover.
Yes, this beautiful cover. Oh, whoops. Which side? Yes, she did an amazing job. It truly is beautiful. And I wanted, you know, the waterfall, the magical waterfall. So that is actually the portal to get to all these different realms. And so you have a magical key, and there's only 2 of them, and you travel through, you stick it in the waterfall, and it becomes a portal, like a door to go to other realms. And that's a story in itself, because as a little girl, I loved waterfalls, and I always wondered, like, what if there's like something behind the waterfall? Like, what
Let's
if
go.
there's like a world or something? Like, where does it go? What's behind the waterfall? So that stuck with me all these years, just that inspiration of nature and like that wonder that nature creates, just because it's beautiful and it's just beautiful creations. Isabella and Peter, they're 12 and 14. And creating their characters, I wanted, you know, the older brother, he picks on his sister a little. You got to have that because brothers, older siblings do. And so he's protective over his sister, but he also is has a little bit of pride, you know, like he wants to do things his way. And then Isabella, she struggles with fear a little. She's afraid of the dark, and you know, she has this like desire to be adventurous and to do great things, but then there's that fear that starts to come up. And so I really wanted her character to just be able to relate to readers, because fear is like a huge thing in people's life. It truly limits us. And I, you know, as a young girl, struggled with fear, and it was just something you know have to overcome. And so I wanted a character to show just overcoming fears, to not let it limit you and control you, that it is possible to overcome. And even with Peter, there's some fear. He's not as fearful, but his character shows just a lot more pressure, a pressure of needing to be the best, and you know, the older sibling of needing to keep it together because he's the older sibling. But so both of them, there's a little bit of fear because they're going to a new world. But so each of them, you know, have their own characteristics and things that they have to overcome. So
yeah, I remember there's a mixture of fear and excitement that they have in the story, especially when they find out who they truly are and are supposed to be, and then that whole adventure takes off. With friend Sarah, did you always intend to like have a friend companion that joins them, or did she just kind of come in as you were writing?
Yeah, I did plan for her because I thought it would be neat to have another character that comes along and experiences someone that, you know, is from the realm that they, you know, were hidden in. And just to see her journey and just that side character and just having her come along, because she adds a little bit of, you know, support and encouragement. And then she's overcoming things too along the way. And like, you know, what is her role in the story? And she's trying to figure that out because they have this great destiny, but you know, she's just on the side, like, you know, what is my purpose? You know, do I have anything to give? And so that was fun, building her character of like, oh yes, you do have something to give, the encouragement and a role to play. And so she's not just a side character, but she has some purpose in the story too.
So this is Chronicles of the Hidden Realms with an S, plural. So we know that this maybe is just a first of many books. What's next for you? What's coming that we can be looking forward to?
Yes, so book 2 is coming. I'm hoping to make it a trilogy. And so ending this book, there's a cliffhanger like a hook. I don't want to give too much, so I won't tell you why they have to go to another realm, but there's also a sneak peek, and it's called The Forgotten Kingdom. So the second book in the series. And yeah, so I'm excited to continue their journey and them sharing light through the realms and the adventures that they go on. And then I'm looking forward to creating more creatures too, because it's going to be a whole nother realm. So it's like, you have to world build.
Yes.
So,
You do.
so I've been making lots of notes and like thinking of like creatures, like I'm thinking of a shapeshifter creature that I want to do. So there's going to be a lot more creatures too to create. So it's been fun. I've been so distracted with marketing and this book. I haven't written as much, but I have the first 2 chapters. So, and I have lots of notes. I am continuing to write notes because I'm like, ooh, I like that. Or I like that name. Oh, that would be a good character. So you never actually stop writing.
Well, with the first book, I know you did a writing challenge, didn't you? Like for 1 month, you were going to write like every day. So, and that like really helped boost you finishing that book. So I know sometimes those challenges can be really helpful to like kind of get your like butt in gear and
Right?
actually start writing.
I need to do another challenge. Yes. Yeah, it did help, because then I realized like, oh, I can write every day.
Yeah,
I
it is
can,
possible.
set the time aside. Yeah, it is possible. You're just making the time.
So I am curious, even once the Hidden Realms is completed, are there more stories or books, do you think, that you'll have to tell when this series is over?
I think so. I would love to do a children's book.
Oh,
And
yay.
yeah, so because I love inspiring kids, and so even just the little kids. So I thought about kind of going and researching some of my roots. I have a little bit of Native American in me. And so part of me is like, oh, I can do it like a Native American story, like just an adventure. And so part of me wants to do that, or some uh, just kids books that inspire, overcoming fear, or, just different challenges. So there's that. And then I do want to write like a little book about Grundle.
Oh, yay.
Because everyone loves him so much, and I mean, I
Yeah.
love him too. So just kind of like his story, like a little book about his story and his origin. So that would be fun.
Oh, a little cute picture book. I could see a cute picture book for Grundle. So, Leah, tell us, what advice would you give someone who wants to write a book?
So I would say don't doubt yourself, because for me, growing up, I struggled with dyslexia. And so I wasn't a avid reader that would read tons of books. Although I had such a vivid imagination, I had stories in me. And so even though there's obstacles, to not give up and to not limit yourself because of the obstacles of, am I really an author? Am I, you question yourself. So really don't let doubt sneak in and steal your dreams, and to go after your dreams and just get your story out. It doesn't have to be perfect. And that's what editing and beta readers are for, and going through all those things. I have learned so much through this process that
Yes.
it's been amazing. And so as you do, step out, it's like you're learning and you're growing, and you can't expect yourself to be perfect. But until you step out, it's like you won't know and what you can accomplish. And so it's just like, get your story out. Don't let those obstacles limit you and stop you from pursuing your dream. So yeah, that's my encouragement.
I love that. And that's super inspiring because there are so many people who have good storytelling in them. They've got amazing stories to tell, and they don't because they've disqualified themselves, or it's difficult, or they have obstacles they have to overcome, which I love because it's such a huge theme in your books and your storytelling is it's worth overcoming these obstacles to discover that you're important, that you have a calling and a destiny and something that you can step into that's magical. And so not to be dissuaded when it comes to writing. So Leah, where can people find more information about you, or where can they go if they want to buy some of your books?
Yes, so I am on Amazon. Also, any place where books are sold, you can get my book. And then I also have a website. It's www.leahandbrown.com. And you can order copies from there through PayPal or Venmo. And I'll sign your copies. So if you want something a little special as a gift, I'll send you, bookmarks and a sticker and sign your book to whoever you want it to go to. So you can find me on there. And I also have a link tree, and I'm on Instagram and Facebook, and it's just at author.leahandbrown. And I'm on TikTok.
Yes, on all the things.
All the things.
I think that's amazing. Hey guys, Christmas is coming up, and you should go check out leahandbrown.com and get a signed author copy. What an amazing thing to get to purchase right off of her website. Not only do you have an amazing story, but you have a collectible item signed by an author that comes with some fun additional perks. So please go support her, check her out. Buy one of her books, buy it for a family with kids who are middle grade. They will love this book. My daughter loved it. She loves all the magical creatures in it. And also be sure to leave a like, give us a comment, share our podcast so that more of our fantasy sci-fi nerds can join in the conversation. And thank you, Leah, for coming on the show. We so loved having you, and we will see you next time.
Oh, thank you so much.